Once upon a time, though the phrase hardly suits this tale, there was a kingdom where perfection was law, and even a single mistake felt like treason. In this kingdom was born a boy named Dorian. At first, he wasn't called lazy at all. No, his parents, King Leontes and Queen Veralda, declared him the highness of high potential. But to Dorian, they were never truly mother or father. They were Mother Hyperia the spreadsheet, and Father Checklist, rulers not just of a nation but of his every waking moment. Instead of bedtime stories, they gave him timetables. Instead of hugs, they gave him gold stars. Excellence is not an achievement, it is a baseline, his father would declare in the echoing throne room. Dorian excelled in everything he touched: swordplay, literature, diplomacy, even music. Yet the more he succeeded, the less alive he felt. Applause replaced affection, reports replaced joy, and his friends, well, he had none. Only tutors and mentors who measured him like a project. And then one day, quietly, without rebellion or drama, he stopped. Stop trying. Stop striving. Stop caring. He thought, surely now, they'll notice me, not just my results. But no one did. His brilliance faded, and all anyone saw was a boy who refused to rise. From that day on, whispers followed him, the lazy prince. Years passed. Dorian grew tall, but his spirit slouched. He spent his mornings yawning through council meetings, his afternoons lying on palace floors, and his nights staring at ceilings. "Your Highness," an advisor once urged, "the military budget awaits your sign-off." "Already? Time flies when you're horizontal," Dorian muttered. His mother often scolded. "You are royalty, not a rug." But he only replied, "Mother, the floor and I are bonding." The kingdom laughed at his laziness. They mistook his exhaustion for idleness, never knowing that behind every yawn was the crushing weight of never having been enough, never for himself, and never for them. And then came Gilda, a peasant huntress, sharp-eyed and sharper-tongued. She met him one morning near the forest. "You're the prince?" she asked, unimpressed. "You look like a nap that got dressed up." Dorian blinked. "And you are?" "Gilda. And you?" "Mostly decorative. Occasionally clever." She smirked. And for the first time in years, Dorian laughed, not a performance, but a sound that felt real. Unlike others, Gilda didn't flatter or scold him. She didn't ask him to be extraordinary. She simply accepted him, laziness and all. Slowly, he found himself seeking her company, as though her presence lightened his crown. But peace rarely lasts. One morning, a minister stumbled into the council chamber, pale and trembling. "Your Majesty," the king and queen vanished. No storm, no magic, simply gone. The court erupted. Nobles whispered of curses, guards shouted orders, priests raised prayers. In the middle of it all, the lazy prince slouched, half listening. Yet the truth was undeniable, the throne was empty. And so, by law and blood, Dorian was crowned king. Dorian was unprepared. Rival lords pounced on the chaos. They spoke of a secret project left by his father, an ancient orb meant to calm unrest by releasing a mist of peace across the land. "Only you can activate it, Your Majesty," they urged. "For the kingdom's stability." Too weary to argue, Dorian placed his palm on the orb. A strange fog drifted from it, curling over fields, towns, and cities. The lords applauded. Dorian yawned. "Good. Maybe now everyone will nap with me." But days later, things changed. Farmers stopped tilling fields. Horses refused to run. Children no longer played. Even ministers sat in meetings with hollow eyes, staring at nothing. The kingdom wasn't calm. It was collapsing. And only Gilda noticed the truth. In the palace attic, she uncovered a scroll. The orb wasn't a gift of peace. It was a weapon called the looming. Designed for war, it whispered failures into people's minds until they surrendered to despair. She stormed into Dorian's chambers. "Dorian, what have you done?" "I pressed a button," he mumbled. "What did I wake?" "The looming. It doesn't soothe, it consumes. It turns kingdoms into graveyards of will. And only you can stop it." He groaned. "Wrong napper. Try someone heroic." "No," she said firmly. "You've lived under its shadow your whole life. Don't you see? What it whispers to the kingdom now, It whispered to you since childhood. You were never lazy, Dorian. You were burnt out. For the first time, Dorian listened. The scroll spoke of a cure. Not steel, not fire, but courage to face one's own shadow. Dorian entered the orb's chamber, where the mist thickened into shapes. They became voices, his parents, his tutors, his critics, all chanting. Not enough. Not worthy. Not king. He fell to his knees, shaking. They're right. I am lazy. I am nothing. But then he heard another voice, softer, grounding. Gilda's. Dorian, laziness is giving up. But you never gave up, you endured. Every day you carried a mountain. That isn't weakness. That's strength. He stood. The voices grew louder, but this time, he shouted back. I am not your checklist. I am not your perfect prince. I am just me, and that is enough. The mist screamed, twisted, and finally shattered. The orb cracked in two, and the fog dissolved across the land. Slowly, the people stirred. Farmers returned to their fields. Children laughed again. Advisors blinked awake in council halls. The kingdom was alive. Dorian, the once lazy prince, was no longer mocked. His people saw him differently, not as flawless, but as human. And in that humanity, they found hope. He ruled not with perfection, but with empathy. He encouraged rest as much as labor, kindness as much as discipline. And beside him stood Gilda, the only one who ever saw through the fog, both outside and within. In time, the tale of the lazy prince became legend. But those who knew the truth remembered. He was never lazy at all. He was the king who finally proved that being enough is greater than being perfect.